So just to clarify, I do not have an issue with cisgender, Caucasian, heterosexual women. My issue is with the company positioning these women in power because they have this assumption that with more women in positions of management, it is then indicative of inclusion and or diversity when it's not.
A lot of the women who've stepped forward, and I stand in solidarity with them, okay? What they're getting paid, which is half of what a man is getting paid, well, we get probably a tenth of what a Caucasian woman gets. And I'm number one on the call sheet. And then I have to go in and I have to hustle for my worth. That's what I feel like I'm doing. When I demand what I feel, listen, I have more than a 30-year professional career. I had a friend who said, yeah, but Viola, your career is better than my career. I said, yeah, but you can't compare me to you. Because once again, I got the Oscar, I got the Emmy, I got the 2 Tonys. I've done Broadway, I've done off-Broadway, I've done TV, I've done film, I've done all of it. I have a career that's probably comparable to Meryl Streep, Julianne Moore, Sigourney Weaver. They all came out of Yale. They came out of Juilliard. They came out of NYU. They had the same path as me. And yet, I am nowhere near them. Not as far as money, not as far as job opportunities, nowhere close to it. And yet, I have to constantly get on that phone, and I have fabulous agents, by the way. They are getting it. But I have to get on that phone, and people say, you're a black Meryl Streep. You are, and we love you. We love you. There is no one like you. Okay, then if there's no one like me, you think I'm that? You pay me what I'm worth. You give me what I'm worth. And even in terms of roles, because when I delve into a role, I want something complicated too. I do. Just like building the most unbelievable structure, a sculptor wants to build the most unbelievable building. That's how I feel, that's what I do as a human being, as an artist. I want to build the most complicated human being. But what I get is the third girl from the left.
So, according to my company, with many families out of work this holiday season, said company is launching a hashtag GIVINGTUESDAY to bring back jobs to the community. Now through December 24th, 2020, for every in-store pickup or curbside order, the brand will donate $10 up to $1 million to the nonprofit partners fueling this. I'm sorry. It's just a weird name. This Way On Forward? What? This Way On Forward job opportunity? Can you just call it an Onward job opportunity program? Like This Way Onward job opportunity program? I think we get what direction we're going in. I'm sorry. Do I have to rephrase that, or do you guys want? I just put it in the video. You'll see the text in the video. But through This Way Onward, said company has provided jobs and mentoring to 10,000 diverse youth from underserved communities, aiding more than 800 new hires to the brand just this holiday season. With the support of customers, said company has donated $1.8 million to the program thus far in 2020 and is on track to hire 20,000 youth by 2025. Unfortunately, as this company manufactures gender-neutral clothing appealing to our LGBTQAI plus community, as this company produces over 200 sizes across all divisions appealing to our petite, tall, and plus-size communities, and as this company has provided young adults like myself with their first job, the actual execution of said intentions falls short of its meaning, as none of my superiors, nor their promotional extensions, nor their work incentives, or the work culture reflects the inclusion or changes this company advocates. All of my managers are cisgendered, heterosexual, Caucasian women, with the exception of a cisgender, heterosexual Mexican woman. Now, as race and gender are obvious observations, for me, it's the rigor and or lack thereof that it took for my superiors to acquire their promotions. It's the effort they put forth within their acquired promotions. It's the minimal prerequisite being met for a superior. It's the lack of collegiate accreditations. It's the erasure of superiority and seniority. And as I refer to superiority and or seniority, I'm merely referring to the relationship that I have cultivated with this company. So, for example, I've been with the company since the age of 16. I was hired the year of 2016, the month of October. And if we're getting as specific as to date, I want to say I was hired October 16th or October 12th of 2016. And again, I was 16 years old. And I was hired as a part-time associate rather than a seasonal associate, because October and December is a seasonal, period, Christmas, Halloween, Thanksgiving, etc., etc. Typically, you're hired as a seasonal, and I was fortunate enough to be part-time. So I've been with this company from the year of 2016 all the way to the year of 2021. And through this period of time, I have been a lead. I have been an entry-level associate upon my initial employment. I have been a senior lead. Unfortunately, I'm no longer that because of my restrictive hours. Given that I am a college student, I have to focus on my degree, and I'm nearing the end of my degree, so I had to limit my hours. And that leads me into another conversation that I want to have very briefly. So because I had to limit my hours, they're using this as an excuse to cut me even more than they typically would. Like I said, I have superiority and seniority. So I've been with the company. I know the patterns. I know what to do and what not to do. So when I restricted my hours, or rather limited my hours to work, instead of coming in for 32 to 40 hours, I pretty much limit myself to like 16 to 20 hours, which is pretty reasonable. It's nothing crazy. Like 4-hour shifts for 4 days, you know what I mean? And I knew what time to schedule it. Nonetheless, I get my schedule for the past 2 weeks. I've only been scheduled once every week. And when asked about it, they say, oh, well, we're hiring so many new people. This is a retail establishment. You're always hiring new people, but it should never be a situation where your seasoned associates are not getting scheduled, because it's not even just me. It's people that came in after me but have been there for like 3 years in comparison to my 5 years. And they're getting scheduled like 11 hours out of the week rather than getting scheduled 32 like we used to. And it's due to this change of management. And what's so interesting about my manager, and I don't want to cut from the commentary, but what's so interesting about my current general manager, she has never introduced herself to any of the employees to further understand like who is seasoned and who is seasonal and who is, like she never did anything to acquaint herself with the staff. She just came in and said, okay, changes. But one thing I can say about my male employee, not to suggest that this is a thing of gender, but one thing that I can suggest about my previous manager, who was a male, is he came in and he honestly just observed for the first week, for the first month. He just observed the store to furthermore understand like the culture of our location. And that really benefited him, as it too benefited the staff, because he knew, okay, LAMIA, you're good at the fitting room and pretty much everything, but your strong point, especially during the seasons, is the fitting room. So-and-so, he's good at visuals. So-and-so, she's good at the register. None of my female managers have acquainted themselves with the store. And I'll further explain my theory of this as the commentary continues. But this is just something I wanted to add so you understood why I was referencing the erasure of superiority and seniority. Not to suggest that there should be a hierarchy or, this unjust power dynamic. It's just saying like, hey, I can teach these people something that maybe they can't learn on their own, or maybe they shouldn't have to learn on their own. So getting back to the commentary. So now referring back to the topic of race and gender, cisgender, heterosexual, Caucasian women between the ages of 23 to 32 with minimal brand knowledge and limited work experience, lacking collegiate accreditation within business management or administration, appear to be a constant variable within my store among my superiors. That is why race and gender is so integral to this conversation. So to expand upon my previous thoughts so that you can understand everything preceding, I want to share with you all an encounter that I had with my previous manager. Now, my current manager is a Caucasian woman. My previous manager was a Caucasian male. So my previous manager was having a conversation with us grade 2 associates Grade 2 associates are leaders within the store. Grade 1 associates are entry-level associates. So typically they may be new part-time hires or seasonal hires, whereas grade 2 associates, we've been there for a long time, or honestly, our work ethic proved that we were worthy enough to be leaders. Now, at that time, our store was going through a lot of changes, and typically, if you work in retail or fast food, you may be able to attest to this, but and even in any industry where there are high turnovers, like even healthcare, you expect a turnover with your assistants. You may expect a turnover with your associates, but you would never expect for your doctors to turn over as frequently as we saw our managers turn over, if that makes any sense. A turnover is basically when people come in and they leave just as soon as they got there. So our management was just leaving. We could not sustain retention. And he was discussing how our company was becoming more diverse. Our location was becoming more diverse as we welcomed more women into managerial positions. Yet, an influx of women is not indicative of diversity, nor is it an adequate representation for and or of all women when you choose an archetype of a woman to be the default of all women. So when you're choosing a cisgender, heterosexual, Caucasian woman to represent various races, ethnicities, nationalities, that's not indicative of the diversity you speak of. Just because we exist within the same cast of gender and or sex, that doesn't make me feel any more represented. Kind of like when Hillary Clinton ran for presidency and everybody was like pressed about having the first female president rather than an adequate president. Like, no, give me an adequate president. I don't care if she's a woman. I don't care if she's shucking and jiving at these HBCUs, kind of like Kamala. Like, no, I want to be properly represented. And if I have to be represented by a man or another woman that can do the job better than she can do it, then send them on over, you know? So again, I speak of race and gender significantly because it's reoccurring, and now it's a constant variable. So if my 4.5 to 5 years of leadership as a grade 2 associate, one tier short of management, is not enough, then what is? If my collegiate pursuits are not enough, then what is? If my brand loyalty, such as my reliable attendance, open availability, thus including on-call availability, and on-the-job flexibility, isn't enough, then what is? If my rigor isn't enough, then what is? If my training of associates, yet alone my managers, is not enough, then what is? Because I've asked passively like a woman, aggressively like a man, and assertively like myself, and yet stagnation for 4.5 to 5 years as a grade 2 associate, as I watch my company extract associates from other stores, from other locations to manage at our location when we have qualified associates whom can manage our store. So just to clarify, I do not have an issue with cisgender, Caucasian, heterosexual women. My issue is with the company positioning these women in power because they have this assumption that with more women in positions of management, it is then indicative of inclusion and or diversity when it's not. I think it is important to consider gender, sex, and even sexual orientation given the wage gap disparity that often the LGBTQAI community faces, quite the same as Black women, Latina women, so on and so forth, Native American women as well. But moreover, when you're assessing these variables, you too must ensure that the quality of work is there, not just the quantity of representation, but the quality. So, grappling with the fact that I may never become manager, I sought higher pay.
I get so petrified in this space talking about equal pay, especially when you look at the intersectional aspect of it, right? Where white women get paid more than black women, and black women get paid more than Asian women get paid more than Latino women. And it's like a very scary space to step into because I always feel like I fail when I speak about it because I can't help but feel already so gracious to do what I do And I feel like culturally, I was raised to just feel so appreciative of getting here.
According to the National Partnership for Women and Families, within a fact PDF sheet entitled Quantifying America's Gender Wage Gap by Race and Ethnicity, published March 2021, descending lowest to highest, Latinas are typically paid just 55 cents for every dollar paid to white non-Hispanic men. Native American women are typically paid just 60 cents for every dollar paid to white non-Hispanic men. Black women are typically paid just 63 cents for every dollar paid to white non-Hispanic men. White non-Hispanic women are typically paid just 79 cents for every dollar paid to white non-Hispanic men. Asian American and Pacific Islander women are paid as little as 52 cents, as Burmese women are typically paid just 85 cents overall for every dollar paid to white non-Hispanic men. Across all racial and ethnic groups, women in the United States are typically paid 82 cents for every dollar paid to men. So prior to me asking my general manager for a pay raise, I decided to look at the policy and procedure just to see how our pay incentives work. For a while, my general manager would tell us that we had to sell cards, we had to sell story credit cards to receive more and or higher pay incentives. That was false. That was an absolute lie. But nonetheless, after looking at policies and procedures, I then asked a couple of associates candidly, off the clock, off the record. I asked them like, hey, what is your pay rate? Because I'm going to ask the general manager for a pay raise, and I just want to know what is the best number? What is most reasonable for me to ask? And the pay rates that I was disclosed of was just baffling. It was so baffling. And there was one associate whom is a black male. He is queer. And I only mention this because I feel like it's important to be as detailed as possible. It's not to be discriminative. And, he was a black male. He was queer. And he informed me of his pay rate. And I was shocked because he had only been at the store for about a year or two. I have been with the company for 4.5 years to 5 years. And I wasn't even making close to what he was making.
I had no idea. Like, I know what, generally speaking, black women in my age range make, right? I have a general idea. But I had no idea what anybody else made. You know what I mean? No clue. And then when we started meeting and talking and organizing, and you start having these conversations as different people are in negotiating, renegotiating. And it's like, wait, I'm sorry, how much? What? You make what? What? You came, like, that number came out your mouth? And they said yes? Shit.
Yeah.
Ain't that some... And it would never occur to me to ask for the amount. Like, what?
And to add insult to injury, he never got any cards because he always worked morning shifts. He was always doing moves. He was always doing markdowns. He rarely had to interact with associates as he had to interact with associates. So he didn't really have to deal with the customers like I had to. I usually deal with the fitting room. So I'm getting everybody. I'm cleaning the fitting room. I'm clearing out the fitting room. Sometimes I'm backing up on the register. Sometimes I'm helping them with the behind the scenes stuff, doing markdowns, doing price changes. I was so extendable. I was doing so much to get paid less than a man who doesn't even do half of what I did, who didn't even get any cards at all. But he was getting like 30 cents more than me. And just briefing an experience that I had early on within my career of retail, I'll never forget, I was 16 years old, and I was working with this company for about a couple of months now, and I was developing a really good rapport. My work ethic was always A1. At this time, I wasn't even driving, but I always made sure I made it there on time. Again, I was always available to them when they needed me. So my parents, were taking me to work, picking me up from work, but I was always there. I was closing, I was opening, I was midday, I was there. I was working my black ass to the fucking bone. Do you hear me? But nonetheless, I'm working, and we get this girl. We're going to call her Elizabeth. I think that was her real name. And she was 30 years old. She was a Caucasian woman. And she got to the fitting room, and I was the queen of the fitting room. I used to run everything so fast. It would be so clean by the end of the night. Like, if you worked in the fitting room, you know you have to have it clean before the end of the night. And it's always important to keep it clean throughout your shift. If you can do that, you're almost certain to be, you know, scheduled frequently in that area. And so I was. So I was the queen there, and I would help her figure out things of the fitting room. I'm one of those people. I'm not going to train you how to take my job, but I'll definitely train you on the essentials, and whatever you pick up from there is what is to become your niche. You know what I mean? So basically, she never just caught on to anything. She never really gave any effort to the job itself. Yet nonetheless, my manager, prior to my previous manager, so my first manager, he loved the hell out of her. He loved her so much. And he was willing to make her a lead prior to making me a lead. So he did. So she was a lead for literally like a couple of weeks until she decided to quit because she couldn't handle working at the register. She really couldn't handle doing her job. She was a very polite woman, very sweet woman. She just did not have the work ethic. She did not have it in her to be a lead. There's no reason that I have a lead that is supposed to be leading me and I'm telling her what to do. No, if I'm telling her what to do, then I need to be in that position of power, and I wasn't. So I'm not going to help you. Like, no. It might have been wrong, but like, sorry, that's not my job. That's your job. So nonetheless, that was a really interesting experience that I had, because it was like I was already there for about 6 months to a year, and you're going to make Elizabeth, the girl that just came in, barely even made it through her 90-day probationary period, or however you say it. You know, she barely made it through the 90 days, and she's a lead. And then when she leaves, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, Lamai, you can be a lead now. Elizabeth's gone. Yay! I'm like, okay, thanks. And something that I also wanted to touch on is accreditation. As mentioned previously, if I did not mention this previously, as I will mention, none of my managers have a business administration nor business management degree. They're not trained for their position per se, at least collegiately. And I feel like it's important to be well studied or skilled within a trade or a specialty. When I was doing dental assisting, I had to go to school to be certified to be a dental assistant. Yes, I could be a dental assistant without this certification, but it was highly recommended and or highly sought after. So nonetheless, when I was doing call center work, I realized because I wasn't studied in that area due to my experience in Europe, I wasn't as successful. So I had to go through internal training with that company to furthermore be studied in home equity line of credits. So from my professional and personal experiences, it's very important to me that my managers have some form of training or some form of experience. My assistant general manager has only been with the company for a year. So within a couple of months, being hired as a regular grade 1 associate, she then managed to be hired as an assistant manager. She wasn't an assistant general manager, but rather she was an assistant manager. And then she became an assistant general manager because we had a lot of internal shifting with our management. Like I mentioned previously, we were having a lot of turnovers. And then my assistant general manager, the one before her, she left the company after 4 months. And what was so interesting was the manager before her. It's so confusing, but when I show you the diagram. So my assistant general manager initially, when I first got hired, was a black male. He went to school for business administration and or business management, and he was not getting paid as he should have been paid. He was not being used in the way that he was most skilled to be utilized, for the lack of better wording or phrasing. So he had to go to another company, at which he then became a general manager at that location and was paid, much more than he was being paid here. So nonetheless, when he left that position for our location, for our company, we received a new assistant general manager, and she was a Caucasian woman. She was only with the company for 4 months. She came from Victoria's Secret. She was managing there, and she just saw our company as a lucrative endeavor. She said it multiple times. She didn't even learn anything about her position. She never even actively participated in her role. She had other managers picking up where she, was most weak at or whatever, but she didn't do her job. And she was able to accumulate enough money to leave the job or leave her position after 4 months and go on a year-long hiking trip What the hell? My previous general manager couldn't even do that. She has no degree in business administration or business management. She literally has a degree in photography. What? Where? No knowledge of the company. She's never worked with our company before until she got hired 4 months prior to her leaving. So then our current assistant manager, she's working there, and she was literally just given the opportunity due to her, positioning within the hierarchy. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's right, but it's just like none of them are skilled. None of them are licensed. None of them, they're not accredited. They don't have experience. Like my last manager, like my first, assistant general manager. He was a black male, been with the company for 10 plus years, knew his shit. That's why I was so good as an employee, because, I was under his supervision. He helped me. As much as I helped myself, I had a lot of good leaders when I first started out. Although there was a lot of unfair treatment in certain areas, there were more positive than negatives.